to another Unity 5 tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to convert a legacy animation model into a Mecanim model. So I've got this little dragon guy, which I grabbed from the asset store. He's here. I want to use him for a dragon flying controller tutorial that I'm going to do a little later, but he's in the legacy system. So I need to convert him into Mecanim so that he's a little bit easier to control. All right, so I've put him into the scene, and if we have a look at what he has on the inspector, you can see that he's got the old animation component attached to him. And if you're familiar with the previous versions of Unity, like the early versions of 4 and 3 and 2, then we had this animation component attached, and it had all of the animations that you could run on your character attached to it, with the one that's currently going to run at the top, which is, in this case, it says run. So if we run this, he will run. Now, the run animation isn't looping at this point, so it's only going to play it once. And if you wanted to change that animation, you could click on this and select something else. So if we click on fly, for example, and then run that. Okay, he's flying. He's also gone through the camera a little bit. You'll also notice with that flying, what happened to him is that I haven't got code on there that makes him jump up or anything. It's the animation itself that starts him at a higher position than his standing still position, which can be a bit of a problem when you want to animate stuff and join animations together, that your animations will go, if he's running and then he goes to fly, he will sort of just slip straight up into the air, and you don't want him to do that. So we need to adjust the curves in the Mecanim system to cater for that, and I'll show you where you do that towards the end of this tutorial. Right, so first of all, we're going to grab all of these, or the ones that we want, and convert them into the Mecanim system. All right, so here's our little dragon. Instead of an animation component, he's going to have an animator component. So we can add that there. Now I'll just leave this animation here so we can reference it, but I've turned it off. Now all of the animations will be controlled by our animator, which you can see he currently doesn't have an animator, and he also needs this thing called an avatar, which he doesn't have either. So we need to create a new avatar for him. So we go to the asset area in the project, and we find his model, which is this one here. Okay, and then when you've clicked on it in the inspector, you'll get this view where you can go model, rig, and animations. And in the animations, you'll see all of the animations that were back in that animation section, and you can see the start and end frame for them all. These are the frames that have been programmed in, or I should say keyframed in your animation program, and this little guy has all of his animations in the one file. And this is a similar thing that's going to happen when you bring in an animation that you have created yourself into Unity. And I'll look at that in a different tutorial. But just for now, we need to convert him into a new Mecanim. So up in Rig, we want to go to the animation type. It'll be set to legacy. We want to set it to generic. We can't set him to humanoid. If you had a humanoid character, you could go humanoid, but he's not humanoid because he's got wings, and well, we obviously don't have wings. The wings have a separate set of bones controlling them, so it won't match up with the humanoid model. So we want to go generic. Now, without changing anything else, we can just hit apply and see it's got this avatar definition and then create from this model. That will create our avatar object that we needed before. So let's just click apply. Okay, now something happened down in here, but you can't see it. Let's just expand out our model. And you'll see all of the animations which were there before, but you'll now see that there's this Toon Dragon avatar at the end, which is this little bust type thing. So now if we click on our character in the hierarchy, we can use this avatar as the avatar in our animator by dragging and dropping. Right, the next thing we need to do is create our Animator Controller, which we've done in the other tutorials that looked at the Mecanim basics. So let's do that in here. In Project, we go Create Animator Controller, and it's going to be here, and I'm just going to call it Dragon Controls. Actually, it's not controls, is it? It's animation, but it doesn't really matter what you call it. Right, so now I will select my character in the hierarchy, and I'm going to set this Dragon Controller to be the controller in our animator. All right, so everything that's going to happen in this animator controller is going to make him animated. So if we double click on our controller we just created, we go to our animator view. Okay, now remember, these are all of the states that we've created, and it's currently empty. So each of the animations that have been specified inside of the model, which are all of these here, can be dragged and dropped in here to apply them to that model. So this essentially is converting from the old version, legacy animation, into the Mecanim. So I'm going to grab the fly animation. I'm going to put that up into here. Notice that it goes orange, which means that it's the default animation that will now run. So when we press play, the fly animation runs. Notice it didn't loop, and he still is jumping up in the air, and the camera's still a little bit too close. So let's just grab the camera, go into the scene, and just pull it out just a little bit, and maybe move it up a bit. Okay, now when we go run, we'll be able to see that he jumps up, flaps his wings, and his animation stops. Okay, so that means that this fly animation isn't set to looping. Right, so to fix that, we can go to fly, which is here, and in the inspector, edit it, and then down the bottom here where it's picked fly up, we click on loop time and loop pose, and then click apply. Now I've got a mask error here. I just fix that, get rid of it. Okay, let's run that. And now our animation for fly is constantly looping. All right, now to add more animations, we can just drag and drop all of these ones that we've got. So let's make a little animation sequence. I'm going to put in run. Okay, put in run, and I'll make the run a default, so it'll be orange. And then we're going to transition from the run, so make transition, and click on fly. So he'll do one run cycle, and then he'll go into the fly. And let's just play that. Now you'll see that he jumped straight up. Now you might not want this to happen because when you start to control your character with the keys and move him around the screen, you don't want him to be doing one particular action and then jump and be somewhere completely different from his original position that he ended in. This is probably not the best one run because he kind of looks like he's jumping up in the air, but he's not actually. He's being physically moved by this fly animation up into the air, whereas you'd probably want to control that with code rather than have the animations do it because you don't know where he's going to be at any particular time. The other thing is, I'll just show you too, if we click on this toon character and we have a look at his transform and his position, take note of where his position is. So this is the position, the root position of your character. When it runs, okay, when it's running, you'd imagine he's just going to stay in the same place. But when he flies, you would think that this position is going to jump up in the y-axis and move him. So let's just have a look what happens. Nothing. This didn't happen at all. The animation is allowed to move your character around in the world, but not affect the transform that's added to it. And this becomes a real problem if, as I said before, you want to really control him and keep smooth animations together. All right, so how do we do that? We really need the position he is at the end of this run to be the same position that he is in at the start of the fly animation. And this is where we work with the curves that are in the Mecanim system. Okay, so to get to those curves, we select the character and we go to this animation tab. If you don't have it, you can just find it through window animation there and bring it up. Okay, now this section has every single joint, the bones in the body, and sets the position, the rotation, and the scale for each one. And in this model, there's a lot. Okay, this is the dope sheet that we're looking at, and we're not really interested in that dope sheet. We're interested in these curves. If I select that, you'll see that there's quite a big mess of graphs. Now, if you're not familiar with curves, this is going to be a little bit challenging to get your mind around, but we're going to look at just one thing. And what we're really interested in with our little dragon is his position and his root position. Okay, so if we click on the root position, then we can see we've got these 3 different lines. We've got a green line, a red line, and a blue line. Now, these colors relate to our axes back in the scene, which is here. Okay, so if you ever forget what the colors are, you can look at this little gizmo. And green is our y-axis, red is always the x-axis, and z is the blue axis. Okay, so back in animation, this curve up the top here is our y, the value of our y position, because we're on position. You can click on rotation, and you can see that these are pretty straight, so there's not much going on. It's position that's changing, because when he is flying, he's actually bouncing up and down. And if we just drag through this, you can see that at the top of this curve, he's at the top of highest Y position, and down here, he's at his lowest position in that little bouncing up and down movement that he does. And that's because he's moving in his Y position. His Z position is staying at 0. He's not moving at all. And his X position is, I might need to zoom in. It's not 0. He's not exactly on 0, 0. He's down here. And you can click on it to find out what it says, which is not letting me. Oh, that's because we're not allowed to edit it. That's right. It's read only. Anyway, you can see that possibly not on my screen, but on your screen, so that says 0, and then this says negative 0.005. So he's close to 0 in the X direction, but that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in the Y value here that seems to be starting him in a Y position that is that says 0.15, and so he's just up above there. Okay, so this is the fly. Let's go back to the run. If we go back to his run animation, have a look at those curves there. When he runs, he's running at a height of here, which is at 0.06. So he's not on 0. He's actually a little bit up in the air as he's running as well. And his run animation, if we play this, is also, he's got a little bit of a bounce in his movement. Now the idea is, because we want to go from running to flying, is to make this position here at the end the same as, go back to fly, and this position here. So these values of these 2 points, these 2 key points, key frames I should say, need to be exactly the same height to have him transition smoothly from one thing to the other. And you should probably do that and check that it's with the Z and the X axis as well. Okay, but we're just going to move this here. Now, as I said before, this is read only, so we're not actually allowed to edit these. It won't let us. So there is a way around this. Let's go back to our animator. These two came with the model and are embedded in the model file, and they read only. The way to get around that is to grab hold of the run animation, which is here, and press Control D. That will duplicate it and put it outside here. And we want the fly one. Where's that? Here. And Control D. And that will put the fly one here as well. And these ones are editable. So we can actually delete these two animations that are in the animator. And let's put fly in and run in. And we're going to go from run, set that as the default, and make transition to fly. Now when we click on our dragon and go back to the animation, you'll see that the read only has disappeared, which is allowing us to edit these animations. I guess it's kind of good that you can't edit the original ones that come inside of the file itself, because you've always got a backup copy of them if you really muff this up, which is always a possibility when working with curves. Now, we said we wanted the first frame, first keyframe, which is this first dot at the beginning of our Y, to equal the ending one of our run. So let's go back to the run and let's just have a look at what height it says this is. So this, you won't be able to see this unless you zoom in. Okay, so the keyframe is at time 0.67, which is the first value, and the value after that is actually the height value, and the height says 0.05974. 0.05974. Okay, you're going to remember that for me, aren't you? So 0.05 I'll remember. Okay, let's go back to fly and just zoom out and find that thing here. Okay, so here's our curve. If I double click on it, I can grab all of it. And then if I'm very lucky, I can grab it and drag it down to 0.05. Notice what's happening to the dragon over in the game view. See that he's moving down because of this whole animation is moving down. So 0.0, I don't know why these are so small. It's so hard to read. 0.5-ish is about there. Okay, it's not perfect, but that will do. That will demonstrate my point here. So now if we come back to this guy and run him, he will run and fly. And notice how he did it in the same spot. That run isn't looping, so you got to be real quick. Run, fly. And notice his Y didn't move. Okay, so we've fixed that up. So that is the controls for the curves and moving the curves and matching them from one animation to the other. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is how you can use these curves to create a custom animation. Now, the ideal thing to do to make a custom animation is to actually animate it in Maya or Blender or something, if you can do that. I just want to make something really simple, which is an adaptation of this fly animation. And I'm going to call it Cruise, because I want my dragon, as he's flying along, to be able to sort of fly with his wings out straight and cruise through the air without flapping. So let's grab our old fly and we'll go Control D. So we've got this other one, and I'm going to change that to Cruise. And I'm going to drag that into the animator. If it's not in the animator attached to the character, you won't see it in the animation window. Right, where did my cruise go? There it is. I'm going to bring that in, and I'm actually going to transition from fly to cruise just so that it runs. And let's go to our animation, and we're going to flip to cruise. It's a copy of the fly that we edited, so it's fine here. But what I want is for him to have his wings out straight and there to be no flapping. Okay, so flapping is going to involve a rotation of some particular joint. And if we look down through our list, we should be able to find his wings. Okay, so there's a left wing and there's a right wing rotation. Okay, and if we have a look at this and run it, you see that you're getting that flapping, the up and down and up and down and up and down of the wings. Okay, so we probably want to flatten out all of these curves so that they're not flapping. The way to do that is to double click on the first thing to select the entire curve, and then right click and go delete keys, and that will flatten it out. And now if we run it, you can't see any difference with that one. Let's do this one. Delete keys. See his left wing starting to lag a bit. It's not got the full animation in it because we're now deleting all of those rotations, and delete. And you'll see that you're getting pretty much nothing happening there with that wing. Let me just move it around so that you can see it. And just align with view. Right, so see that left wing is now lost all of the animations that were on there. Except that it's up and we don't want it to be sticking up. So we need to go and look through the other bones that might be the left wing. And if you look down through the list, you'll find even more. So there's this one here, and you can see that there's a lot of flapping going on with this one. So we can also delete the keys for all of these. And there's, I think, even more parts of the wing down here. Find the one that's the one doing all the work, which is this blue one, and delete the keys. Okay, and now it's pretty much stuck there. Okay, now this blue one, which was doing all the work, we can actually move it up and see how it moves his wing, or at least the end of that wing there. And it probably means that that very top level, if I can find it again, where's that top level wing rotation here? If we grab this, yeah, we can move his whole wing out into sort of a more of a cruising position at about there. Now, the same process you'll want to do with the right wing's rotation is to delete all of the keys for all of the different rotations. These are the rotations around the X, Y, and Z axis. And then there's all of the sub parts of the wing on the right as well that you want to get. Most of them tend to be the blue one. And the final one, which is this one here. Delete keys. Okay, now if we just scrub through here. Okay, we've stopped that wing from moving. And we can go right up to the top level for our right wing, which is here, and grab the blue one and bring his wing out to the side. And there we go. So now he's got a cruising mode for flying, which has only modified his wings, not his tail. So his tail was doing a little flappy thing, which looks pretty cute. So we're going to leave that like it is. And if we come back to our character and look at it from this angle as well and just play through those. So you see he did a run, he did a flap, and then he's gone into the cruise, which was the animation that we created ourselves. This is, imagine that he's flying through the air without flapping. He still has the other movement on him, which is nice. So that's a whole bunch of other curves that you can play around with and delete all of those keys as well, if you like. All right, so that's basically it. That's how to get your old legacy system into Mecanim and to play around with the curves. At first, yes, those curves are very daunting to get your head around looking at those graphs, which basically take your X, Y, and Z axes and spread them out over time to give you the values. But the best way to learn is play around with them. So I hope you learned something and this is useful for modifying your characters in moving them from Legacy into Mecanim. And I'll talk to you next time.